This is the epic poem that's performed at a holiday that happens once every 7 years, where 4 different planets in the intergalactic Imperium share a solstice. It might seem impossible, but it's one of those things they love to celebrate. And in this universe, it is possible, and it is true. And when they celebrate Pyrian Midsummer, they perform this epic poem in a parade that rolls through the capital, as well as on the other 4 planets that share the solstice. It becomes this giant visionary festival, and this is the epic poem that's told during the parade with actors. And I'm just going to launch through it and skip other descriptions of the scene and just read the poem itself. And it's more on the fantasy side, fantastical, magical, essential. Okay, I'm just gonna take a sip of water. Cheers to MisCon. Okay. Now we retell the tale, as we do every Pyrian midsummer, the story of old Babylon Magus, when this place was Babylon, before it was Alexander, in the times of the Magus emperors. When walls, the ground, lights, the world, breathed and grew at human whim, miraculous machinery lost to ancient thought. Before even the pergola on the plateau was raised, when water reached to the walls of the city, there was an only son, only child of the Magus. His name was Marius Nicolai, also called Sakhana, for he embodied the gentle warrior's way, young but already wise, formidable in reason. Clever enough was he to discover the great evil in old Babylon, in the walls themselves, forces that held his dear land in secret thrall. Cousins, advisors, the builders, his father. Old Babylon Magus was dying a slow death at the hands of its keepers, bargains they'd made with forces beyond their kin. He would witness the end of it. Clever Sakhana, he made sure of it. He took action, performing rites for those he hoped he would save, and wept for the fall of this place as he knew it most. By his engines, by his doing, Babylon fell in one night. His father, advisors, cousins, the walls. Many wonders and arts now gone. Sakhana cast himself from a keyhole parapet to the waves far below, his last desperate measure. Old Babylon Magus had different creatures then, and these saved the young man, bearing him far. Sakhana only heard their ocean music. He awoke on a shore at the base of a cliff, as a woman was climbing down. He hailed her, and though hesitant, she went to help the stranger. This was Zoe, fleeing from capture. Sakhana was sorely weak. Zoe gave him water and brought him up the long approach to the entrance of a cave. Within were rooms hewn from the rough stone cliff. In one of these they hid, and as he regained his health, she told Marius Nicolai her tale. Zoe lived her whole life by this cliff, but was now pursued for reasons unknown. She could defend herself with her bow in hand, and that was all. Her pursuers were relentless. They threatened her family to find her. She was leaving to hide when she found Sakhana at the shore. Trusting Zoe in turn, Sakhana told her his tale of flight. He recovered, and they ventured further into the cave. They continued until they reached an iron gate. Beyond it lay sky. Light fell over expanses of mosaic-tiled streets. Sakhana saw before him a kingdom more beautiful than Babylon. Gardens, fountains, a palace in the distance, bathed in sunny silence. Zoe found the gate key nearby where it was hid. and they walked to the palace, eating fruit from the trees. Inside were further splendors, all deserted. A series of statues led them to a chamber below, where a powerful light pulsed and glowed. The light poured forth from an enormous jewel, size of an eagle, crystalline and blue. It rested on a pedestal in the center of the great underground chamber. Without a thought, they drew close to the starry warmth, but as they touched it, the earth and the foundations began to shake. Sakhana went to flee, but Zoe cried out that they mustn't abandon the jewel. She toppled it from the pedestal, but it was too heavy for her to lift. So Sakhana carried it with her, though they could hear the castle crumbling above them. Through grave danger, they emerged to the mosaic-tiled streets. The castle collapsed behind them in a cloud of dust. From this cloud issued a furious roar. A flaming beast with hooves, wings, and talons came charging with a voice like a host of warriors. Sakhana made himself a match for the beast. As bright as the beast burned, it was no brighter than the flame in his heart. As high as it flew, it never escaped his eye. When it closed the distance, Marius Nikolai leaped to meet it with bare hands and iron. Zoe stood guard with her bow over the jewel as Marius Nikolai and the beast wrestled once, twice, thrice, and each time his burns were healed with the light of the jewel. The next time the beast broke free, it wheeled to face the girl and dove. She struck the beast with her arrows, but they burned, and she threw herself out of its path. With its talons, the beast seized the jewel. As it flew away, Zoe loosed more arrows until one struck the jewel, breaking a piece of it free. Sakhana found where it fell and offered it back to Zoe. They knew the beast would return soon, so they fled back across the deserted city to the tunnel cave. Exiting the cave, they encountered a ship anchored off the coast and rowboats on the beach. Zoe retreated, but Marius Nikolai stopped her. He knew them, pirate traders who visited Babylon mages. Zoe stayed hid, and Sakhana moved closer to investigate. He overheard them speak of his home, a city in ruins, but a people awakened and free. They struggled to survive the harsh time, but still, they sang of that day as a good one. They celebrated the fall as a victory, and so Marius Nikolai knew that he could return home. Sakhana showed himself to the nearby captain, who recognized and moved to embrace him. Sakhana asked after Zoe's pursuers. They had been here, the captain said, and gone hence some time ago. They had seen no one else. Marius Nikolai brought word back to Zoe in the cave. At once, she determined to see what had become of her family. Sakhana accompanied her to the top of the cliff. Inside, the house was empty, but for a message. They had left in haste, their duty discharged, to care for the changeling princess until her identity should be discovered. Zoe held the gem shard and knew what her pursuers were seeking. Her kingdom was dead, not of this world, so it was said by the dying man, who brought her as an infant to this cliffside. He had given them her true name, Viridius Merida. It was said that should she ever go to her old home, it would be her doom. Zoe wept. She knew she had seen it, and that she could not go back there, nor stay. Sakhana asked her to come with him, where he would rebuild his country. Though grieving, she agreed to the journey. Sakhana showed himself to the nearby captain, and that's a previous stanza, pardon me. Marius Nicolai and Viridis Merida left with the trading vessel, making many calls to port. As they approached Old Babylon, there was more rumor of what was lost and gained in the fall of the city. Some spoke of the mages and how its last son was missing, but Marius Nicolai kept his identity secret. They arrived at the port of Babylon Mages with an abundance of goods, carrying timber, fiber, stone, and food. These he distributed among people, still not revealing his identity. Zoe went with him, healing and listening, keeping the jewel concealed. By its magic, she gained knowledge of ways to live without the forces that corrupted the city and brought its downfall. This she shared with Sakhana and his people. In time, they prospered. The city as they knew it disappeared, brick by gear. As the old fortress was being cleared, Marius Nicolai found a cellar door he hadn't before seen, blown askew on its hinges. A hallway led into the earth. He journeyed in, bringing none but Viridis Merida, who would not leave his side. The hallway went to a bank of empty storerooms. In the last of these, Sakhana found a hidden trapdoor with a ladder going further down. Here he entreated Zoe to turn back, but she would not, so they went on together. So absorbed were they in the mystery of this place, they didn't see the torch running low until it began to gutter. They were enveloped by darkness, and fear arose. Sakhana banished the angry spirits that crowded his mind as they made to turn back in trepidation. Viridis Merida saw a glow in her pocket. She withdrew the gem, and it lit the hall. So they continued. Before long, the passageway ended. They examined the dusty end, uncertain. As Zoe held the gem to the wall, a light answered forth, describing a door with its hidden mechanism. Marius Nicolai and Viridis Merida entered a vast library chamber. The walls bearing volumes were flanked by massive statues that glowed as though living. These took many forms that Sakhana recognized as his people's ancient teachers of myth. He bent a knee before them and at the sight of this place. Zoe held the jewel aloft, and the library responded with its own illumination. In wonder, they explored and examined the trove. Many of the finest volumes were empty, by myriad items of unknown but powerful magic. A wall of books opened before Zoe as she approached it holding the gem. It revealed a stairway of masterful craft. Upon the stone steps were carved tales of great heroes. Sakhana asked Zoe if she would stay behind, and again she refused. So together, they took the long, winding stair. When at last they reached light, they found themselves atop Mount Kairos. Marius Nicolai had not known the place. He found there a slender stone, standing to chest height. In the top of it, a small window. The solstice sun set, and the gem of Viridis Merida glowed again with a piercing light that fell directly on the stone. So she brought it close, placing it within the window. The jewel pulsed, growing brighter each time. Then, with a deafening silence, the light enveloped the entire city. All across the land could see it, near and far. Within the encompassing veil of light shone visions, sharp and clear, of a realm with more grace and triumph than any they had seen. Every detail of it etched into every looking eye. Nor could any eye miss the man and woman atop the mountain, revealed in majesty. Though distant, their faces became known to all in that moment. Marius Nicolai and Viridis Merida were recognized thus. They stewarded the beginning of the next age of marvels, and the new city that became Alexander capital. So at Pyrian Midsummer, we conjure forth our visions, bright and clear as the light of Zoe's gem, great and certain enough to lay the foundation for our futures in the spirit of new hope. To Marius Nicolai, to Viridis Merida, to Alessander, and to the great Pangalactic Imperium.